Hey guys, it is a great day to be thankful for gun rights. And not just because this is the Thanksgiving time of year, but because this is America. And because this is America, we have all the history, legal text, and strong traditions that politicians and judges will ever need to recognize that we have the right to defend ourselves, our communities, and the country with any tool, and that includes guns, that we want. I'm Phil, and this is the Minuteman Moment. Although there was a major gun control bill that passed this last summer, gun owners won a bigger victory with the Supreme Court and the Bruen decision. While it's not perfect, because of Bruen, lawmakers need to consider the history, text, and tradition of the right to bear arms when they write gun laws. And as a result of that case, never before have the floodgates for lawsuits been so wide. Before Bruen, it was kind of hard to challenge anything in court. Gun bans, magazine bans, ridiculous carry restrictions, and other unconstitutional restrictions were difficult to bring to court because the Supreme Court hadn't weighed in on the issue, and Congress was too silent. But now we have the Bruen decision when we go to court to challenge gun control. This is worth celebrating because even before our country's founding, there was a history, text, and tradition of understanding that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The freedom-seeking settlers came with their guns when they made a home on American soil, and that gun-toting tradition continued in the future. And contrary to what President Biden says, the gun regulations of our early republic were so laxed, people literally did own private cannons for self-defense. And aside from a few exceptions, which New York is trying to resurrect, infringements on gun rights were not seen as a seriously debated issue. It wasn't until President Roosevelt did gun rights take a turn for the worse, with him signing the National Firearms Act about 90 years ago. And gun control sort of calmed down for a few decades until President Lyndon Johnson signed the Gun Control Act of 1968. The following decades were kind of a mixed bag of gun laws, both at the federal level and in the states. In fact, just because there's been a limited trend with gun rights doesn't mean there haven't been some significant victories along the way. We of course had that terrible ban on the sale of new machine guns after 1986, but we've also had the explosion of constitutional carry at the state level in the last few years. Then there's DC versus Heller, McDonald versus Chicago, and as I mentioned earlier, Bruen. And there's other victories to show that these anti-gun groups have suffered huge losses at the hands of groups like GOA, and of course because of your engagement. They aren't invincible, and they aren't inevitable. Gun control is very much a modern phenomenon. And on the opposite side of gun control is that Americans have never been better equipped to defend themselves. Now, of course, this means guns, but we're also branching out to other areas for our security. I'm talking about radios for neighborhood comms, like the one you saw in a previous video of mine. We have more and different types of training available to us than ever before. The average guy can get really good training on how to use his firearm from a real expert. And maybe the most important, we are much more self-aware of our needs for community and state defense than any generation before us. A government who loves to oppress law-abiding citizens, but doesn't care to put a stop to rampant criminals, forces us to become more self-reliant. As I've said several times before on this show, I'm a committed optimist. Our government has changed a lot since 1776, but the spirit of our country really hasn't. In fact, who we are as Americans hasn't changed since the founding. We aren't free for freedom's sake, but we're free so that we can create a more perfect culture and better ways to organize ourselves politically. But on this Thanksgiving Day, let's show our gratitude for our family, our freedoms, and our country. On behalf of the gun owners of America, I want to wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. I'll see you soon.